All right, Genesis chapter 9, verses 1 to 17. Here we go. It says, "So God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, 'Be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth.'" Sounds familiar. Sounds like a commandment Yahuwah gave to Adam and Eve.
It's Genesis 1.
Genesis 1:28.
22 is one of them. That's at the phone. 28. Yeah, 28.
Yep, 27 and 28. God created man in his own image. In God's image, he created him, male and female. He created them. God blessed them. God said to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it." So here we go with Noah telling his sons a similar thing. Be fruitful, multiply, and replenish. Verse 2. The fear of you, sounds like the dominion also in Genesis 1:28 says, take dominion. It says, the fear of you and the dread of the dread of you will be on every animal of the earth and on every bird of the sky, everything that moves along the ground, and all the fish of the sea are delivered into your hand. I think for the most part, we still have that, but would you guys say something is different from probably this moment in Noah's day to today with the level of fear that animals have of humans? I would think so. I would think there's a difference, right? You got cross references? Go ahead.
So looking at the multiplying, I have, like you said, Bereshit 1:28, but also chapter 15 of Genesis, verse 5, going forward as to how it starts playing out.
What chapter? Genesis
15.
15, verse 5.
Verse 5. And it says, and he brought him forth abroad and said, this is Yahuwah to Abraham, abroad and said, look, can they hear me okay? I'm trying to be louder today. Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Look now toward heaven and tell the stars, if you are able to number them. And he said unto him, so shall your seed be. And then when we go to Genesis 26, verse 4, continues, and it says, it's a repetition. I will make your seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto your seed all these countries, and in your seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. And the last one I had, there's plenty more in scripture, but just showing where Yahuwah starts making this for our people. And in Exodus 1:7, at this point there in Mitzrayim, it says, and the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. And it goes on. So, our people will multiply. It's always a remnant, but he still has
that was by the time they were going to Egypt.
Mm-hmm. Well, they were in it.
It was already being fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
Praise Yah. Good stuff.
And verse 20 in the same Exodus 1. I'm sorry, that's where I missed it. And it says, Exodus 1:20 says, therefore Elohim dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. Yeah.
All right. Genesis chapter 9 again, verse 3. Yahuwah said, every moving thing that lives will be food for you. As I gave you the green herb, I have given everything to you. We discussed this in previous chapters, and we will discuss it again. This is not Yahuwah telling Noah he can eat unclean animals. Okay? It didn't make sense then, meaning if it's unclean to Yahuwah, it's unclean to us. Let's put it this way. Yahuwah wouldn't have gave it the title unclean if it wasn't something known. So the fact that the title of certain animals were given unclean titles, labels, unclean, makes it a distinction. The question would be, why would Yahuwah command his creation to eat what is unclean to him and to his creation, to his humans, mankind. So it wouldn't make sense. Christians try to use this verse to say, you see, back in Noah's day, because they try to justify how today under the new covenant, they're allowed to eat whatever they want. So, and just because this moment was before the law of Moses, likewise, we're after Moses. So we're going back to like the before the Moses kind of the explanations that I get from Christians. We're going back to the time of, pure faith, that's what they would call it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't line up. We also read in previous chapters of Genesis that there were only 2 pairs of each unclean animal that went into the ark. So if Noah and his wife and his 3 children and their wives were eating unclean animals, I don't think there will be enough unclean animals to reproduce themselves and continue the chain of reproduction. Okay, but 7 pairs of clean animals were brought into the ark. 7 pairs of clean, 2 pairs of unclean.
Right.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Just following their logic.
Yeah.
If he did eat unclean, regardless, Yahuwah says not to, right? Later on.
True.
Now, let's say
true.
the whole statement is, well, the Torah is done away with. But then we say, okay, well, look at Messiah's example. Because my thing is, I want to go back to, okay, well, what did Messiah actually do?
Mm-hmm.
And then saying, if I want to be like Messiah, and this it's just part of it. It's not the all in all, but part of it is how he kept his body, how he ate as well. And I want to walk like that. Now, let me take their logic, because I like to completely take the logic to a whole nother level, right? So if they're saying we need to go back to Noah's time and do as they did, they built altars. Okay, so they sacrificed, but they're very against, many people are very against sacrificing. They built altars. They also slept with their sisters and their brothers to reproduce. So why are we not going back to that? You're going to take a logic and apply it to one certain thing as, okay, well, I can eat because in Noah's day, this is how they supposedly ate. Then relationships should be the same way, because brothers and sisters were together in order to repopulate. Yeah. So why is that not okay today? If we want to continue reproducing, isn't Yahuwah still in the area of reproduction? So I
say the New Testament tells us not to. That's why. I wonder. I mean,
same thing with eating. Like,
but I wonder. I know the New Testament talks a lot about sexual immorality, but I wonder, does the scripture ever talk about somebody taking their sibling or forbidding that from happening in the New Testament? Does it get that specific about sexual immorality?
I know the taking of the woman of your father.
I know that one.
But I don't
Book of Acts.
Actual.
No, not Book of Acts. Paul's letters to one of the Corinthians.
Yeah, but I don't recall.
I don't recall it being mentioned. I don't recall the New Testament saying you're not allowed to marry your sister or your brother. Mm-hmm. So because it's not verbatim mentioned in the New Testament, is it applicable now? Are we allowed to do it? So that would be the logic that I would go with. Because they would say, oh, because it's written in the New Testament verbatim, we should obey. Okay, there's certain things that are not verbatim in the New Testament. Bestiality is not verbatim. There's no mention of you're not allowed to, partake in bestiality. And likewise, I think the topic you're bringing up is another one. So if we're going back to before Moses, if we're going back to before the law of Moses, then this stuff would be okay. So yeah, that's a good.
Full logic
just bring out the full logic. Yeah. Go all the way with it. Yeah, that's a good point. Ezzy.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Something that sticks out to me is in verse 3 where it says, every moving creature that lives is food for you. And maybe it's a stretch, but when you look up that word, it basically means, it has different meanings. So it says that it is H2416, and it looks like chai, and it means living, alive, green of vegetation, flowing, fresh of water, lively, active of man, reviving of the springtime. So like you were saying, we've already established in the previous chapters that he did have clean animals on the ark with him, and that he was commanded to have extra pairs so that he can eat. That distinction of every moving creature that lives, for me, comparing it to a green plant is something that is living, something that is like in an ever like a cycle, something that continues to be recycled, something that can continue to be used, something that continues to be fruitful as well, just like we are, where there are some animals that feed off of carcasses. They feed off of dead things. They feed off of things that are not living. And a lot of those animals are unclean animals. So I just think that further supports that it's not every moving creature. There's a distinction here, every moving creature that lives, and not just living with blood, but because even green plants are living and they don't have blood, so to speak. So I think there is a distinction with saying every moving creature that lives versus creatures that may eat dead things and waste. So that was it.
Interesting. Never saw it from that angle. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Feel free to raise your hands. Guests, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hands as well. Good stuff. Verse 4. It says, but flesh with its life, that is, its blood, you shall not eat. All right. So there are some limitations. There's a cross-reference for this, even in the New Testament. Acts chapter 15. This is a when I was in Christianity, I never heard a sermon, never heard anybody preach on Acts chapter 15, verse 20 something. Let me see. 15. Verse 19 and 20 says, therefore my judgment is that we don't trouble those from among the Gentiles who turn to God. Acts 15 verse 20, but that we write to them that they abstain from pollution of idols, from sexual immorality, from what is strangled. I never heard sermons on not eating food that's strangled, and from blood. And I never heard sermons on eating food or from blood. I guess that's a given. I don't think any Christians would be drinking blood, but still, you should be talking about it. You never know if you got some former Wiccan or some former pagan Babylonian blood-drinking person in your church, right? You never know. So you got to preach on the word, right? Dakota, you got a question?
Does this include the blood from when you make your steaks, whether they're bloody, well done, medium well?
This is the argument that I've heard, and I will share my own conviction on this. I'll leave it open for debate, but I heard that the redness from steak that's not cooked fully is not necessarily blood. It's something else that's in the muscles. I forgot what it's called. It starts with an M. Yeah, myoprotein or some, I don't know. I got to look it up, but I heard that it's technically not blood. Me personally, looks like blood. I'm not a scientist, so I believe we should be cooking this thing all the way. That's how I feel about it. So no medium rare steak and what's the other meat? Roast beef, roast beef, when I used to get cold cuts, I used to eat a lot of roast beef. That junk be red. That junk be dripping red. Like, what is this? Yeah. So I don't recommend it now. That's how I feel about that. But definitely cooking the food fully. The strangled part, we don't talk about that much. It wasn't until I came into this walk that I started hearing more about that. Like, if you come to the knowledge that the meat that you eat are chickens and animals that are beaten to death, we shouldn't be eating that stuff. If you come to the knowledge, if you're not aware, that's one thing. But if you know, according to Acts 15, if you're a New Covenant, New Testament believer, this is something you should be abstaining from. You should be staying away from any animal that has been strangled. That means they haven't been killed properly. And there's a way to kill. There's a way to kill animals. You kill them quick, and then you put them upside down and let the blood drip into the ground. Jeremy, you have a question? I saw you raise your hand.
So I can't eat chicken?
I'm not against eating chicken. I'm not against eating turkey. There's some folk in our belief system that say chicken is a fake bird and all this other stuff. It's not a real bird. Blah blah blah. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. There's probably some folk on Facebook right now about to start commenting about it. But no, I don't believe that. You can eat chicken. But if you find out that the place where you get your chicken from, they be throwing them chickens up against the wall, they be kicking them, they be
Tyson.
them up. What was that?
Tyson.
No, don't say anything about Popeyes. You can talk about Tyson.
Is it Tyson's chicken? Because I heard, is it Tyson's chicken? No, it can't be Tyson. Are you for real? Ezzy? I got to look that up. Because I remember that era where KFC started coming out with those videos and those commercials. And I heard that KFC was no longer allowed to produce their own chickens because they were beating their chickens. It was on videos, caught on camera and everything. So now they get their chicken from Tyson's Chicken. I don't know about Tyson's Chicken. I'm going to have to look that one up. But yeah, I believe you're innocent until proven guilty, or, the sins of ignorance until you come to the knowledge. Once you come to the knowledge of something, you're responsible for that. So I say that for all of us. That goes for me as well. Sometimes I don't want to see the truth. Like, no, don't show me. Don't show me. I'd rather not see it. But that's not good to do. And a lot of people do that. Not just on this topic, but on a lot of topics. That's not a good habit.
And we suffer for it either way.
Yeah. Even if it's sins of ignorance, you're still going to suffer the repercussions. Now, scripture doesn't get into, Yahuwah doesn't tell us why. Well, he probably does to some degree, but he doesn't give us the reasons that we hear about. Like people say, oh, it causes cancer, or it can give you stress and anxiety. Yahuwah doesn't get into those kind of details. He simply says, this is what you're not allowed to do. He gives you the commandment. He doesn't need to give you an explanation. However, we got people studying this, and we got people seeing the results, the statistics, people who eat this kind of meat versus this people who eat this, and they see the difference, okay? Perhaps there's a connection, if these animals this is what I've heard scientifically, that when animals are severely stressed, they release a very toxic chemical into their bloodstream, into their body, and it goes into their muscles, it goes into all those parts that we eat. And when you cook that chicken, it doesn't go away. Those particular toxic things that probably cause anxiety and stress and sleep disorders and whatnot, because this is what the animal was going through before it died. So I'm not a scientist. This is something for you to look up for yourself. But in Acts chapter 15, verse 20, it tells us not to stay away from strangled meats. Okay? And some people, I really don't know what Christianity's version of this is. Like I said, I've never been to a Christian church that preached on Acts chapter 15, verse 20. Okay? But I think it's related to Genesis chapter 9, verse 4, where it says, but the flesh with its life, that is its blood, you shall not eat. So again, not allowing an animal's blood to fully come out, putting it upside down, letting the blood drip out of the animal completely, or not cooking the animal fully. These are things that we are not allowed to do. Go ahead.
Just another cross-reference where the life is in the blood is mentioned in Deuteronomy 12:23. It also says, only be sure that you eat not the blood, for the blood is the life, and you may not eat the life with the flesh. No. Oh, and then when you mention poured it out, it says, you shall not eat it, you shall pour it out upon the earth as water.
Mm-hmm. And Doug mentioned KFC was injecting their chickens with a lot of antibiotics. That's true. That's true. Also steroids to make them bigger. Think about it, man. Just think about it. It's your health. It's your temple. It's our health and our temple. And I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I eat places and I don't do my research. I don't try to find out where it's coming from. But is it important? Should we? Does prayer eliminate everything? Does prayer automatically sanctify everything? If Yahuwah forbade us from eating animals that were strangled, do you think our prayers will reverse the strangling process and all the damage that it does? I don't think so. But I think that if we eat animals that Yahuwah allows us to eat, and we pray over that food, it's already sanctified by Yahuwah's word, and what we're praying for is a prayer of thanksgiving. Our prayer is now, Father, protect me from any harm that might be in this meat. I mean, you can pray that because Yahuwah can do anything, right? I believe he can do all things, but is that what we're supposed to be praying? Did the scriptures tell us to pray for our food, that we don't get harmed by any toxins that are in it? Or is he telling us to pray to give thanks? Just thank you for this food that's on our table. Because we've already prepared food that is approved by Yahuwah, certified. Yahuwah certified. You know what I mean? But a lot of us ain't eating. I don't always eat food that's Yahuwah certified. I don't know that for a fact. Okay? All right. I hope somebody was blessed by that. Do your own. Oh, Melissa, raising your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the fact of there's a lot of hidden pork in everything, and I just, with kids, I'm just saying, like, it really, when you read stuff and you see what the scientific name is for it, and it's like everything, and I just, once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it's really hard, so it makes it like, you know, but once you know, it's like you're held accountable for that you know, okay, this contains pork, I'm not to eat it, but, you know, society doesn't look, I mean, it's just, anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh, absolutely. I went to Chipotle the other day with my wife. We go to Chipotle every once in a while. And I was going to get me some steak and some chicken. And she had to remind me, babe, I told you they use the same utensils to cook their pork and their chicken. And I was like, you know. And it's true. They cook the same meat and they use the same utensils. They're switching it back and forth. You know, same grill. If it was a separate grill with separate utensils, I'm all good to go. You know what I mean? But if I'm seeing them with my own eyes right before me, cooking two different kinds of meats and using the same utensils, not even cleaning it, what's the point of me ordering chicken and steak other than pork if you're cross-contaminating? You know, so that's true. That's a frustrating truth for me. And but you know, I wasn't always here, guys. Okay, this was a process as well. Remember, we were Christians. Okay, we were Christians, and it's a process. So I'm not trying to push this down anybody's throat and saying you got to do it right now perfectly. It's a struggle, but you know, ask for Yahuwah's help, because we gotta do what's right, and we gotta take care of ourselves. At the end of the day, you know, we want to please Yahuwah, but we want to live too. We don't. If I'm gonna die, I don't want to die because I made myself sick. That's like, for me, I would think that my child, anybody that loved me and knows what I did to my own body, if I'm the cause for my own death, I would find that I would be upset. If the person I love killed themselves or did something to harm themselves and they died, I would be upset. I'd be like, why did you do it? Why did you all these years keep eating this stuff you ain't supposed to be eating? Why'd you leave me? I'd be mad. I heard somebody preach that in Christianity. I heard a guy preach on that, like people that die, like that have diabetes and high blood pressure, and they keep eating the fried foods and keep eating fast foods until they kill themselves. And then everybody's crying, oh, may God bless him. But no, like, he freaking killed himself. The doctor told him to stop eating this stuff. And some of these Christians, they be stubborn. Like, oh, well, God bless him, you know, God bless the food, so in Jesus' name, and I'm only gonna live once. I'm only living once, so better treat yourself rather than to cheat yourself. You know, we say all these justifying things when really we're actually rebelling against Yahuwah's commands to, you know, that our temple is the temple of Yahuwah, and we gotta protect ourselves in what we eat. Anyway, what you eat isn't very much talked about in Christianity, but I've heard a few messages, you know. Anyway, let's move on. Genesis 9, it is about what you eat. That's why we're talking about it, because it came up. Genesis 9, verse 5. I will surely require accounting for your life's blood. At the hand of every animal, I will require it. At the hand of man, even at the hand of every man's brother, I will require life, the life of man. I'm going to read this in a different version real quick, see. It says, for your lifeblood, I will surely exact punishment. From every living creature, I will exact punishment. So for your death, for your blood, for a human dying, a human's blood, he will exact, a living creature will exact the punishment for your life, for a human life. So Cain and Abel, Cain killed Abel. So from that, Yahuwah is making a command from this point, it seems, Genesis chapter 9, through Noah, that this is how it's going to work. The life of an animal is going to be a way that it takes the punishment for a human life being taken. It says, from each person I will exact punishment for the life of the individual, since the man was his relative. That's a net version. Go ahead.
Could it be reading both? Like for animals' life, I will exact, like I will.
If you kill an animal,
I will seek his recompense, as well as for man, like because the life is in the blood, I will account for every animal and every animal and every human. That's what that I didn't. I don't know how to form my question. I thought he was talking about for animals separately and humans separately. He will require an account for how their blood was handled.
From the two versions I just read, it sounds like to me that the animal's life is being used as a what do you call it? The word's not here, atonement, but it's almost like that the animal's blood being accounted for the life's blood of a human. It says, verse 5, I surely will require accounting for your life's blood. That's the human. And then it says, at the hand of every animal, I will require it. At the hand of man, even at the hand of every man's brother, I will require the life for life. If this is about animals, the only way I can see is if it's murder. Like if you're just like people who hunt for game, they don't even hunt to eat. People who just kill animals, I think that's retarded. You know, just going around shooting animals for fun. That don't make no sense. All right, I think that would be murder. And I think if this passage is talking about that, I would think it's talking about that. Likewise, for a human, you know, taking a human's life away, is Yahuwah is going to account for that. Verse 6. But then there is corporal or capital punishment, I should say, right? There is capital punishment. I think that's different. If it's justified, then it's a man was killed. He wasn't murdered. He was killed. And it was justified according to Yahuwah's court system. But that's the way I'm seeing it. Let's see if there's any cross references. Oh, Ezzy. Yeah. Go ahead. Got anything?
Yeah, I was just going to read my version. My version in verse 5 says, but only your blood for your lives I require. From the hand of every beast I require it. And from the hand of man, period. Has a period. I was thinking that it is saying that we can now sacrifice animals for our blood. And the reason why I think that's what it's saying is because both man and animals were made from the same thing. And it says, but only your blood for your lives I require. From the hand of every beast I require it. We're made from the same thing. The only difference is one speaks, one doesn't. And, you know, we might have different bodies, but essentially, according to Genesis and creation, we're all made from the ground. But we all have the life of Yahuwah in us. So I would see that as being the blood, so to speak, that it's, you know, that it's saying something that's shared between, you know, man and beast. And then in the second part, it says, from the hand of every man's brother, I require the life of man. So I don't know if that helps.
I agree with you on the, we're on the same page with the sacrificing of an animal for murder. But can you check for me in Genesis if animals were also made from the ground? Yeah? That would
She's
be.
on point. She's on
She's
point.
on
Yeah,
She knows
it's Genesis 2,
Genesis chapter 2,
verse 19.
verse 19. Read that.
It says, and from the ground, Yahuwah Elohim formed every beast of the field and every bird of the Shemayim and brought them to the man to see what he would call them.
Perfect. Good job. Wow, I didn't know that. I skipped right over that when you read Genesis chapter 2. All right. Yeah, we're made from the same thing, and we have blood. We both have blood in us. Perfect. Absolutely. Exodus 21 verse 12 says, Exodus 21:12. I'm doing a cross reference. Exodus 21 verse 12. One who strikes a man so that he dies shall surely be put to death. Life for life. Blood for blood. But not if it is unintentional. Exodus 21, verse 12 and 13. It says, but God allows it to happen. Then I will appoint you a place where you shall flee. That's the place of refuge. That's one cross-reference regarding blood for blood, life for life. Exodus 21, same chapter, in verse 28. Here it talks about if an animal does something. Check it out. It says, if a bull gores a man or a woman to death, the bull shall surely be stoned, and its meat shall not be eaten. You see that? We were just talking about hunting for game, how that's wrong. But here's an instance where an animal destroys a human being. That animal is to be destroyed and not to be eaten. So when you go around and hunting for game, you're treating innocent animals who haven't done anything like they're murderers. And they're not. That's a thought that goes through my head. Another thought that's going through my head right now on this is, I don't think this is justifying that you can torture animals and mock them and okay, like the Spaniards do with the bulls and the red handkerchief thing, whatever they use to play with bulls and people riding on bulls. If you get eaten by that animal, you deserve it. Okay? For playing, yeah, they abuse those animals too, by the way. They do the knives, the electric shock. They taser them before they ride the bulls. Before they let them out the gate, they taser them, get them all stirred up. Yeah, man, that's cruel, man. That is not cool at all. That is not cool at all. If you're a believer and you watch that stuff, I'm sorry if you feel convicted. Stop watching it. It's not good. All right. Those are just some cross references. Anybody else? Nope. Genesis chapter 9, verse 6. Whoever sheds man's blood, his blood will be shed by man. For God made man in his own image. Okay. Be fruitful and multiply, increase abundantly in the earth and multiply in it. God spoke to Noah and to his sons with him, saying, as for me, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your offspring after you. Okay, this is what God said to Noah. And with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every animal of the earth with you, of all that go out of the ship, even every animal of the earth. I will establish my covenant with you. All flesh will not be cut off anymore by the waters of the flood. There will never again be a flood to destroy the earth. Was this covenant done away with when Yahusha died and resurrected? Christians say after Jesus' death and resurrection did away with the old covenant. Okay, then it did away with this one. Then we should be expecting a flood. We should be expecting a global flood again. He's taking back what he said. No, that's not what happened. The rainbow covenant isn't done away with either. The covenant that he made with Abraham, that he will be the father of many nations, that hasn't been done away with. The covenant that Yahuwah will choose from him a people to be a set-apart nation, a kingdom of priests, and all this other stuff. There'll be stars, as numerous as the stars, and the sand of the sea. That covenant hasn't been done away with. And certainly the covenant that Yahuwah made through Moses with the children of Israel also has not been done away with. What happens? It all transfers over. It transfers over. That's it. Into the new contract. They reprinted a new contract, and we sign our name at the bottom line. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that it's such a focal point on the Torah of Moshe being done away with, right? Because, and a lot of people, many people I've heard will say because it came of sin, right? Because of sin, because of sin, because of sin. But so did the flood. Like, if you think about it, it's the same reason. The flood came because of sin. So why would that not be the same excuse? I'm just trying to think of, like, one excuse, how come that wouldn't work for another covenant? Like, okay, if you're saying, well, because we're no longer to sin in Messiah, he took that away. Therefore, the Torah is also done away with. Then so should the covenant of Noah be, because the flood came because people sinned. Mm-hmm. So my mind just starts going to the excuses I hear. I think it's just interesting because people don't want to actually obey. I think that's honestly what it comes down to. Yeah. Because when we look at the food, for example, people are like, oh, but it's just food. This is how Yahuwah works. He wants every aspect of our lives. Like, he cares about what we put in our body, what comes out of our mouth.
But the kingdom of God is not of meat and drink.
Meat and drinks, but of power and things like that. But there's that.
Paul says.
Yeah. Shaul says that. You can go through that one. Write that one down. But it's like he cares about every aspect. The way we dress, the way we think, our entire culture. That is how invested he is. That in every aspect of our lives, finances, it doesn't matter. The way we give to the poor, the way we give to our brothers and sisters, the way we borrow and lend, whether we charge interest or don't charge interest, that stuff is in here. So it's just, if we look at it without being so, like, it's almost like a disgust that comes from them, like, the instructions law, like what? But it's like it's our Father, our King, that has a kingdom with rules, because he is so invested in his people, and he has a means and a way that he wants us to walk to look like him. When he sees us, he wants to see himself. That's why I picture it. When I look at you, my daughter, I want to see myself in you. So I know when you speak, I hear my word coming from you. When I see the way you dress, I know it's because it's coming from my word. When I see what's in your body and what you put in it, it's because it's the exact same thing that I would do if I was walking on the earth. How would I walk? So he's just so invested. So I don't know why people get so so against his word, and say that they're not. That's even a whole nother ballgame.
She's all fired up because we recently preached in front of a church and just heard all kinds of stuff. My wife was fired up, boy. I was just like, look at her go, like, dang. All right. Genesis 9, verse 12. So God said, this is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. Perpetual means a long, long, long time. Continual. Okay? And now there's a token. There's an actual physical, reward or a physical, visible object that's going to connect to this verbal, prophetic agreement that Yahuwah is making with all living creatures. Verse 13, I set my rainbow in the cloud. The rainbow does not belong to the LGBT community. The rainbow belongs to Yahuwah. All right? We need to claim that rainbow back. We should start rocking rainbows on our cars. Nah, I mean, you're going to get, at your own risk, put a rainbow on your car with a message on it,
It's a shame because now people associate that with sexual morality automatically. Yep. Now they don't think it's sexual morality, but sexual morality.
Yep.
But the very symbol, that's going to be used against
Well, what's them. The teddy bear cartoon with the rainbows?
I don't.
Care Bears.
Care Bears. Somebody knew it. Somebody's a
I don't know
90s, 80s baby.
They promote. I don't know about that.
No, I'm just saying. LGBT.
We should make We should make a sign with the rainbow that says this is the sign of the Creator Yahuwah, not of abominations.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's an abomination.
Another pamphlet coming to a city near you. Another pamphlet coming up. Yeah, this month is LGBT Pride Month, you know. Very fitting, you know. Pride comes before a fall. So this month is that. But we're claiming it back. It belongs to Yahuwah. We don't got to claim nothing back because it's always been Yahuwah's anyway. Claiming nothing back. All right, verse 13. I set my rainbow in the cloud, and it will be a sign of a covenant between me and the earth. When I bring a cloud over the earth, that the rainbow will be seen in the cloud. I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you. See, even Yahuwah remembers the covenant by looking at the rainbow.
I like to think, real quick, I like to think at the same time when I look at a rainbow, his eyes are looking at it. Like, I just, like,
that's cool.
Oh, we're looking, Daddy, at the same time. I remember you, you remember me.
We're both looking at it together. Yeah, no doubt. He is. He just said it right here. He would be. I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters will no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. Verse 16. The rainbow will be in the cloud, and I will look at it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. Is he kind of speaking in third person here? Even though it's him speaking? He says between God and every living creature. I think that's interesting. What do you say?
I just want to say one thing, because science now tries to explain away the Most High. Yahuwah created science, okay? Point blank, period. The way the particles in the air reach the light to create this. So people think now that they have an understanding of the why behind something, now that we understand how a baby's formed, now that we can see inside a womb now and all this stuff, it has nothing to do with God because we gained knowledge, which eventually I believe came from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So, but that does not do away with what he does. Regardless, you said something before, regardless of him giving the why behind something, if he says it, it is point blank, period. So many people want a why, rather than just, Abba said it, point blank, period. Like for us nowadays, I think we have a lot more, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think we have a lot more understanding behind certain things. But even if we didn't, it makes no difference. To me, what I think that does, it actually dampers some people's faith because I can explain it. I have the knowledge to understand it. So it couldn't have been Yahuwah because I can say this chromosome, like, so Yahuwah is in control of it. So I know some of our people are against science. Yahuwah, he's the architect of the world. Like he's very, very, very specific down to our chromosomes of how he did certain things and why he does them. It doesn't do away with him. So that's all.
Interesting. Verse 17, last verse, it says, God said to Noah, this is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. So it's for everybody. Sinners, righteous, animals, clean and unclean, everything. So this is really important, you know, and it has not been done away with. And heaven and earth is still here. You know, if anything, that covenant transferred over into the new covenant. There are many covenants in the scriptures. There's not just one and there's not just two. Yahuwah is a covenant-making God. He makes a lot of covenants. And he renews them. Okay. So anybody got any questions? Ezzy?
And he keeps them.
Yes, he keeps them. Hallelujah.
But I have two cross references. What stood out to me is when he said, I shall remember my covenant. So in Leviticus 26 verse, I'm going to start at verse 40 and go to 45. It says, but if they confess their wickedness and the wickedness of their fathers with their trespass in which they trespassed against me, and that they also have walked contrary to me, and that I also have walked contrary to them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies, if their uncircumcised heart is then humbled, and they accept the punishment of their wickedness, then I shall remember my covenant with Jacob, and also my covenant with Isaac, and also remember my covenant with Abraham, and remember the land. For the land was abandoned by them, and enjoying the Shabbath, while lying waste without them. And they were paying for their wickedness, because they rejected my right rulings, and because their being loathed my laws. And yet for all this, when they are in the land of their enemies, I shall not reject them, nor shall I loathe them, so as to destroy them and break my covenant with them. For I am Yahuwah their Elohim. Then I shall remember for their sake the covenant of the ancestors whom I brought out of the land of Mitzrayim before the eyes of the nations, to be their Elohim. I am Yahuwah. So it's just, I mean, right there, he names several covenants that he's had and that he's kept. And despite our wickedness, when we, confess our wickedness, and when we remember him, he remembers us through the covenants. It's not like us because of what we've done, or no. It's bigger than us. It goes beyond us. It's just amazing. And then the other,
why would he remember something that's been done away with? That's why it's not done away with, because that's what he hinges on to show mercy. He hinges on the fact that he made a covenant.
Has nothing to do. It has something to do with us, but it's him. It's his plan. It's his will.
Yeah.
So the other cross reference I have is Isaiah 54, verse 8 through 10. It says, in an overflow of wrath, I hid my face from you for a moment, but with everlasting kindness, I shall have compassion on you, said Yahuwah your Redeemer. For this is the waters of Noah to me, in that I have sworn that the waters of Noah would never again cover the earth. So have I sworn not to be wroth with you, nor to rebuke you. For though the mountains be removed and the hills be shaken, my kindness is not removed from you, nor is my covenant of peace shaken, said Yahuwah, who has compassion on you. I've never seen that covenant with Noah as a covenant of peace. But if you think about why he destroyed the world, it was because of all of the sin and his wrath. And now he has literally made a covenant to not destroy it again. And it reminds me of someone who asked me, they were like, well, why, if the law hasn't been done away with, then why hasn't he destroyed the earth? Why hasn't he, destroyed Satan? Because he has there's a grander plan. There's things that have to be fulfilled through, that sin that was brought in, in the beginning. So that was all. Hallelujah. You are muted. Sorry.
Thank you, Ezzy. I was just cross-referencing back to the evil of why Yahuwah destroyed the earth. Just going back to that because we didn't cross-reference it. But Genesis 6, verse 5, Yahuwah saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination, that's the thoughts, even the thoughts, imagination of the thoughts of man's heart was continually only evil. So again, the rainbow is connected to Yahuwah's hatred for evil. Every imagination of the thoughts of man's heart. That the rainbow should be connected with that instance, and that he would promise not to destroy the earth with a flood again. But there is going to be fire from the sky. Stars will be falling. Shooting stars, comets, all kinds of stuff going on. Scorpion tails coming out, destroying people. All kinds of stuff going to be happening in the future, okay? Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. He just said, I won't destroy the earth with water. All right? So, all right. Dakota, what you got, brother?
Hey, what was that Isaiah passage, Izzy?
54 verses 8 through 10.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a great one. So we'll end there. Genesis chapter 9, verse 1 to 17.